Rockman X4, the fourth canonical installment in the X series of Rockman games, released in 1997 for the Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1. For those on the fence and have a willingness to learn, Rockman X was first introduced 21 years ago for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. In the game, Dr. Thomas Light created a powerful robot called X, who would be the first in a new advancement of robotics that can accurately emulate human behavior and judgment. This incomplete achievement would later be discovered by Dr. Kane 3 decades after X's construction, resulting in setting the standard for robotics. However, the concept of Reploids was immature and ill-refined, so these automatons went irregular, or maverick, a status that caused Reploids to go berserk and exterminate organic life. To counter this, Kane implemented a mechanized security force called the Irregular Hunters to restrain all violent Reploid activity. However, there was dissension in the ranks, and a shade of Judeo-Christian overtones as Sigma, the leader of the Irregular Hunters, becomes irregular himself and leads an army of berserk Reploids to dispatch the human race. X and his new friend Zero must put a stop to their former leader and bring peace to robots and humans once and for all. Now we cut to the timeline of X4. A new military faction is introduced in the game called Repliforce, and their main goal is to maintain an indiscriminate relationship between man and machine. Sadly, their human creators are skeptic of the idea that they might end up eliminating all life on Earth in favor of their regime. For X and Zero, their job is to make sure that things go smooth while Repliforce grows in numbers. And if that wasn't enough, someone is working under the seams, committing various acts of terrorism, which would inherently cause some of the members to go irregular. Now the Repliforce wants nothing to do with this and decides to take their troops into the stars with a doomsday weapon installed in their new home. Now our heroes must dismantle the Repliforce and the root of the problem once and for all. Spoiler warning, Sigma's behind all this. Like countless Rockman games, your job is simple. Fight all enemies in a side-scrolling stage, leading up to a boss battle in the end. Afterwards, you attain your enemy's weapon, which will prove practical in your future progress, whether having an environmental advantage in the next stage or being an Achilles heel for the next boss you fight. In the X series, there's also armor parts for you to find. It's a rinse and repeat process, but not good to fix what's not broken. The only exception to that is this. Like X3, you can play as X and Zero. The difference is that you can select who you want to play. Each have their own attributes and personal involvement in the main campaign. For X, he's the same as he was since X2. Dash, shoot, climb on walls and collect armor parts to become victorious, all the more in battle. He also struggles to deal with the state of robotics going so far as it has potentially being his fault. Zero, a fan favorite because of the game and inherent hard mode of X4, uses the Z-Saber and close-range combat exclusively, save for the Rakuhoha technique. Furthermore, with his backstory and closer involvement with Repliforce, this is kind of his game. This time around you are provided 2 vitality tanks and a weapons tank, a departure from what many are used to in terms of emergency storage for tougher obstacles. In the case of enemy weapons, each character handles them differently. X is the same as he was in earlier titles, using them for environmental strategy and exploiting other boss weak points. This time around, when in possession of armor parts, your techniques are infinite unless charged. Zero's techniques require a bit more skill, though upon attaining them, the skill names are in Japanese and are akin to fighting game techniques. For example, the Raijingeki or Thunder God Strike and Ryuenjin, the Dragon Flame Blade, which is basically the Shoryuken for Zero. Despite being easy to pull off, strategy is compulsory, otherwise controlling any of the 2 characters are easy to do. Graphics-wise, it's an amazing side-scroller to look at. For a PS1 and Saturn game, it takes advantage of what they can do for 2D titles. The sprites are colorful and smooth, and the backgrounds are interactive and lush. Next to Heart of Darkness and Guilty Gear, this is one of the best looking side-scrollers. It is also the first of the X series to have a full series of anime cutscenes that are integral to the game's story since the PS3 and Saturn version of X3 in Japan. For sound, old school anime sound effects can be found everywhere from the gameplay to the cinematics. The soundtrack is a splendid leap from what fans have been used to in earlier games. As for voice acting, however, English-speaking fans are given the short end of the stick, as less than stellar voice work tears down the most memorable of scenes and set pieces. The Japanese version, which is the more superior in the voice acting department, is for the most part fully voiced. Not only are X, Zero, Iris, and the gang voiced in this version, but the in-game bosses are too. One other feature I failed to mention was that Rockman X4 does away with passwords, and this becomes the standard for later games in the Rockman franchise. Unless you go to the games on your Nintendo Virtual Console, and for good reason. Depending on which game you play, one or two things probably happen. 1. The battery backup would die or reset itself, referred to Super Mario Bros. Collection, or Super Mario All-Stars as it's called here. Or 2. Over time, the passwords would be useless like the Prince of Maleficent. No, seriously, the Prince of Maleficent is terrible. He has no involvement in this movie whatsoever. Lastly, the game is short, especially if you know what you're doing. With little replay value, except for a harder difficulty, and code to give X the Geyer armor and Zero his Nightmare palette from X2. Both of which remove almost all challenge and will shorten the playtime with proper use. X's Nova Strike is utterly broken and can kill lesser enemies and tear through bosses with little effort. Also, one other problem is the localization. Not realizing that X4 was facing an international release, the staff failed to translate the in-game skits properly, which results in Zero and a few characters lightly swearing. Plus, some of the cinematics are very violent. I don't intend on penalizing them for this, mainly because this is something I have no problems with personally, as it is a minor nitpick. Or rather, if you are like me, you have the original game and not Rockman X Anniversary version on GameCube and PlayStation 2, which removes almost all translation errors entirely. Ultimately, Rockman X4 is a nice trip down nostalgia lane. Traditional gameplay mixed with a dark and complex story makes it one of the best games of all time. The game is fairly rare and can be found in otaku vendors, in conventions, or online, ranging from decent to outrageous prices. If you like classic Rockman and the mature X series, then I suggest this gem. It's my favorite game in the franchise next to Shooting Star Rockman 3 and Rockman ZX. And as of this recording, this game and other subsequent Rockman titles, including X5 and Tron ni Kobun, are available on PlayStation Network in both Europe, Japan, and North America. And for very good prices, I might add. Because of how good this game is, review-wise and fan-wise, this game is a Showa's Choice title. I really recommend this game to you. It's a wonderful classic, especially for Rockman fans worldwide.